I love Star Trek Picard Season 3's The Next Generation reunion, but I felt guilty about it. With its Star Trek The Next Generation reunion, Star Trek Picard Season 3 is amazing, but one aspect made me feel a bit guilty for loving it so much. Star Trek Picard kicked off its third and final season when Admiral Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, receives an urgent distress call from Dr. Beverly Crusher, Gates McFadden. Picard then recruits his friend and former First Officer Captain William Riker, Jonathan Frakes, to commandeer the USS Titan A and mount a rescue mission. This mission eventually brought the rest of the TNG crew together aboard the rebuilt USS Enterprise D for one last adventure. As a huge fan of Star Trek The Next Generation, I loved seeing Picard reunite with his old crew aboard his iconic ship. Showrunner Terry Matalas and the other folks behind Star Trek Picard Season 3 let their love of TNG shine through and leaned into the nostalgia of seeing the Enterprise D crew back together. Despite TNG's brilliant series finale, Star Trek Nemesis is somewhat lackluster as a final send-off. Picard Season 3 redeemed some of the aspects I didn't love about the TNG films, but in doing so, it left the characters from Picard's first two seasons behind. Star Trek Picard Season 3's TNG reunion came at the expense of the spin-off's original cast. While Star Trek Picard's first two seasons were met with mixed reviews, the show introduced some great new characters to the Star Trek franchise. Of Picard's original cast, only Michelle Hurd's Raffi Musiker plays a role in the show's final season. Picard Season 3 prioritized the reunion of the TNG cast over the inclusion of the characters introduced in the previous two seasons. While I loved seeing all the TNG cast again, Picard Season 3 left me wondering what became of the android Soji Asha, Issa Briones, the Romulan cadet Elnor, Evan Evagora, and Agnes Girardi's Alison Pill, benevolent Borg Queen. Picard Season 3 takes Admiral Picard and his TNG crew on an adventure involving changelings and the Borg, continuing stories that began decades ago. Along the way, the season introduces some amazing new characters. Todd Stashwick's Captain Liam Shaw is a personal favorite, and gives Jerry Ryan 7 of 9 more to do. These aspects helped make it one of my favorite Star Trek seasons, but they also made it feel like a different show than the first two seasons. While Picard Season 3 is great, it did leave me feeling sad for the show's original cast. Although there were elements of Picard's first two seasons that I didn't love, I did like most of the new characters the show created. All the actors deliver strong performances, and their characters deserve proper endings. While Picard Season 3 works well on its own, I couldn't help thinking about the many characters the season forgot. With no plans for spin-offs or future stories featuring the characters introduced by Picard, many of the characters' fates may remain a mystery indefinitely. Picard Season 1 also sets up Elnor to play a larger role in the series, considering his connection with Admiral Picard and his status as the only Romulan in Starfleet. Cristobal Rios's Santiago Cabrera story comes to a satisfying conclusion in Picard Season 2, and Season 3 brings back Raffi, but every other original character is mostly forgotten. I would like to learn more about Soji's story, for example, and see her meet Data, Brent Spiner, whose positronic neuron was used in her creation. Picard Season 1 also sets up Elnor to play a larger role in the series, considering his connection with Admiral Picard and his status as the only Romulan in Starfleet. Jean-Luc now has a biological son in Jack Crusher, Ed Spaliers, but surely he won't forget about Elnor. When Star Trek Picard Season 3 brought back the iconic crew of the Next Generation, it felt like a dream come true. I was elated, thrilled, even emotional. Seeing Jean-Luc Picard, Will Riker, Beverly Crusher, Geordi LaForge, Worf, Deanna Troi, and Data together again aboard a starship, solving mysteries, and battling galactic threats was everything I had wanted for decades. And yet, beneath all that joy, a pang of guilt gnawed at me. I wasn't sure at first why I felt that way. This was the ultimate fan service, a love letter to those of us who had grown up with these characters. For years, I had lamented that the TNG crew never got a proper send-off, that their story had fizzled with Star Trek Nemesis, a film that neither captured the essence of the show nor gave its beloved characters the farewell they deserved. Season 3 of Picard was, in a way, a course correction. So why did I feel guilty about loving it? One reason was the stark contrast between this season and the first two. Picard was initially sold as a bold, introspective look at its titular character. The first season explored themes of aging, trauma, and regret, painting a more contemplative picture of Jean-Luc Picard. It was different from TNG, but it had a purpose. Season 2 continued in a similar vein, albeit with a shakier execution. However, Season 3 abandoned a more personal storytelling in favor of a full-on nostalgia tour. While I adored every moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't what the show had originally set out to do. Another part of my guilt stemmed from what this reunion meant for new Star Trek. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a rescue mission salvaging Picard from the lukewarm response of its earlier seasons by injecting it with pure TNG nostalgia. And in doing so, it sent an implicit message. Perhaps Star Trek's future still relies too much on its past. While Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks have found ways to innovate within the franchise, Picard Season 3 suggested that the only surefire way to win fans over is to lean into nostalgia. As much as I loved it, I worried that it signaled a reluctance to embrace fresh ideas and new storytelling. Then there was the reality of seeing these characters older, wiser, but also undeniably aged. Unlike Star Wars, where actors can be digitally de-aged or replaced with CGI recreations, Star Trek made the admirable choice to let its actors appear as they are. And while that made the performances more genuine, it also made me painfully aware of my own aging and the passage of time. The return of these characters was wonderful, but it also reminded me that this was likely the last time we'd see them together. Every moment felt precious and fleeting. I also couldn't ignore the narrative shortcuts taken to make this reunion work. Some characters, like Beverly Crusher, were given fascinating new arcs, while others, like Deanna Troi, felt underutilized. Lore's return, while entertaining, was a convoluted way to bring Brent Spiner back into the fold yet again. And while I was beyond excited to see the Enterprise D once more, it did feel like fan service on steroids. Every piece of nostalgia was carefully placed to evoke maximum emotion, and I happily took the bait. But should I have demanded more? Shouldn't I have wanted a story that pushed the universe forward rather than one that revisited the past so heavily? Ultimately, my guilt wasn't enough to dampen my enjoyment. If anything, it made me appreciate the season even more. It forced me to examine why I love Star Trek and what I want from it. The TNG reunion in Picard's season may third have been a nostalgia trip, but it was one crafted with love, reverence, and an understanding of what made these characters special. It gave them a true, heartfelt send-off, one that Nemesis never could. Maybe I felt guilty because I knew that loving it meant I was part of the problem, the audience that Hollywood caters to with sequels and reunions rather than fresh ideas. But sometimes, nostalgia is exactly what we need. It connects us to our past, to the things that shaped us, and to the stories that made us who we are. And if one last adventure with the TNG crew was the price of indulging in that nostalgia, then so be it. I gladly pay it again. I put together a reflective piece on Star Trek, Picard Season 3, exploring both the joy and the guilt that comes with indulging in nostalgia. Let me know if you'd like any refinements. Love, reverence, and an understanding of what made these characters special. It gave them a true, heartfelt send-off, one that Nemesis never could. Maybe I felt guilty because I knew that loving it meant I was part of the problem, the audience that Hollywood caters to with sequels and reunions rather than fresh ideas. But sometimes, nostalgia is exactly what we need. It connects us to our past, to the things that shaped us, and to the stories that made us who we are. And if one last adventure with the TNG crew was the price of indulging in that nostalgia, then so be it. I gladly pay it again.